Let's explore some of the more advanced types of questions that you could use on Google Forms and think about how you might be able to use them. Because again, there's a lot that's possible within Google Forms beyond just the really simple basic questions. So the first question I want to ask is to find out who is in my session. And so my question is going to be, what are your school affiliations? So I could ask this as a multiple choice question based on house, based on grade level, but I want people to be able to choose a bunch of different things. So here I'm going to choose checkboxes, which allows students or responders to check more than one thing. So maybe I want to know house, so their house might be Florence, or Kyoto, or Marrakesh. I'm tabbing to move from one field to the next. They might be in Cusco, that I'm not sure how to spell. They might be in Jakarta. They might be in Seville. They might be in Timbuktu. Okay. They also, maybe I also want to know what their subject area is. So maybe we're English, math, social studies, science, GPA, CTE, world languages, other. And so that will let people check and specify additional things. I'm going to say this is a required question, done. Okay, the next thing I want to do is get some feedback on pictures. So a cool thing about Google Forms now is that you can add in video or images. So I have this cool image that I want my students to think about changing views of education. So I'm actually going to insert an image. So I'm going to add an item, and if you look over here, I want to insert not a video but an image. So I'm going to click this. And my options are that I can pull it from the internet, I can upload it as a file, I can pull something off my Google Drive. I happen to have an image ready to go that I want to upload. So I'm going into my pictures folder. And the image that I want is this McMenamin's mural from a hotel in Oregon. I'm going to open that. Okay, now Google Forms is inserting that image into my form. It's a pretty sweet image. I can give the title to the image, and it is a mural at McMenamin's. And I'm going to put as a note to you guys that this was add item plus image. That's how we got here. Okay, so now that's set. I'm going to say done. Okay, now I want to get my class's reactions to this picture about whether this is a positive or a negative view of education. So I could ask them to respond in text, in sentences, but I want to get something that I could quantify to show them their reactions in the aggregate. So I'm going to add an item, and I actually want to do a grid here. I could do a scale also, so from like very negative to kind of positive, but a grid lets me do multiple questions like that. So I can say, does this image promote a positive or negative view of, okay, and now I'm going to have a lot of different options. My question type is grid, so I'll remind you here that the question type is grid. Okay, so this is going to give me a matrix of rows and columns. So the columns that I want to get on here is whether it promotes a positive or negative view of students, of teachers, of learning, and of school. So those are my categories, and then the descriptors that I want them to be able to use on the columns are very positive, somewhat positive, neutral, somewhat negative, and very negative. Okay, so that's my matrix, and then I'm going to say I'm going to require one response per row, and then say done. So you'll notice this gives me a grid question type. This is the kind of thing that you could use for a rubric as well. Okay. So that was one question I wanted to get. Now I have another image that I want to get their reactions on, but this form is feeling a little bit long. Maybe I'm imagining that they're going to be doing it on their phones. So I want to add a page break, so it's going to force them to go to the next page. And I'm going to do add item, and I'm going to go to page break. And it just gives me a page break, and I'm going to say modern view of education. And so this was added page break to get to the second page. Okay, done. Okay, now I'm going to add a second image, but I want to get a different kind of feedback on it. So I'm going to add another item, and again I'm adding an image. Okay, and I can't remember where I found this image, but the title of it is En l'an 2000 or something like that, which translates as in the year 2000. So it's somebody's view of what modern education would look like. Okay, so there's my image. Now I want to get my students' feedback on this image. So I'm going to add an item, and this time I want to get them to write, and I want to hear what people think about this. So I'm going to add paragraph text so they have room to write. And I'm going to say, this is a cartoon showing what a vision of modern education was thought to be in about 1900. And I'll say, what is the irony when you compare this to the other? Is this similar to or different from what we do now with the internet? Okay, so I want to get students' thoughts on this picture. I'm going to leave it as paragraph text, and I'll leave this here. The question type is paragraph text. Okay, they have a space for a longer answer. This is going to be a required question, so they have to type something there, and I'm going to say done. The last thing that I wanted to show you how to do with kind of more advanced Google Forms is this confirmation form. So once students submit their form, you can say, thanks, your response has been recorded, but you can also put other messages here. You can also put links to other things. So you can get all sorts of things to happen here. This is how we did the Amazing Race. So say you wanted students to do this and immediately to go into an essay prompt on a Google Doc, or you wanted them immediately to go watch a video on YouTube. You could put the link to that right here. So you could say, thanks for your thoughts. While you wait for others to finish, go watch this video. Okay, and I'm going to paste in a link in a second. I can also publish and show a public link to form results if I want to. I could give them a link to submit another response if I'm going to have them respond multiple times. I could definitely allow them to edit their responses after submitting, which is something I do want to do. And so I'm going to go find this link for a video, and I'll let that be a surprise for you if you try to walk through this. When I'm done, I want to go to View Live Form. And I can see what my form is now going to look like. So there's that checklist. Here's the mural. Here's the grid. There's the continue, and this would go on to the second page. Okay, on the teacher side, I've done 3 practice responses. So we can see what the responses look like now by clicking View Responses. Okay, so these are the raw data that was entered from the form on my 3 trials. So we can look at what you might do with this data now that you had it, especially if you'd collected it across a whole class. So one thing that you can do is to copy and paste the text where students have long text responses. You could copy and paste these into a new Google document so that students could start to read each other's answers easily. You could also make it easily scrollable, just if you wanted to project this actual spreadsheet on the screen. A good trick when you have longer blocks of text is to highlight the column that you want to be able to see all the text at once, and go to Format, Text Wrapping, and tilt to Wrap. and then it will give you a block of text so you can see it all in one place. So that's one way that you could show students what they said. If you wanted, you could hide students' names so that it was anonymous. So that's one way that you could show what you've gotten from the form. But all the quantifiable questions that you asked, Google Forms will automatically give you graphs to see how people responded. So you go to Form, and you say, show summary of responses. Okay, and so we can see of my fake responses that I did, 2 of my people were from Florence, 1 was from Cusco, 1 was from English, 1 was from science, and 1 person didn't respond. So here, you wouldn't get percentages, you just see the percentage of respondents who fell into each category, and because people can be in multiple categories, they don't add up to 100, but this can give you multiple responses. I use this with my students at the beginning of the year when I ask what their concerns are going into the year, and then I can see what percentage of my students, for example, are concerned about anxiety or about sleep or about family issues, and I can even show that to students to show them that they're not alone in having those concerns. Here, we can see how students responded to each of the questions. So it disaggregates each of the questions with those descriptors here. So of my 3 students who I responded, they thought that the view in the mural at McMenamin's image was positive to neutral. So everybody was on the neutral side. For teachers, they thought it was a little bit less positive toward neutral. Similar toward learning. And then they thought it was a pretty positive view of school. I just filled these in really quickly. I don't think these are necessarily representative of their opinions. And then down here, for the modern view of education, you can see their responses in full text with the question. So this response summary is really useful in letting you see kind of what students are seeing. This is something you can share with students to show them in the aggregate what their opinions were. If there were right and wrong answers, this would give you an easy way to see who was right, who was wrong, where the most common errors were, and this all just happens through Google Forms and that summary of responses tool.